Well, good morning. My name is Peter Nielsen, and I'm president of the Maine Municipal Association and manager for the town of Oakland. We want to thank you for joining us here today. The Maine Municipal Association, as you know, is a non-profit, non-partisan membership organization that provides a wide range of professional services to towns and cities all across the state. It's important to emphasize that MMA does not endorse candidates for governor, nor do we contribute money to candidates' campaigns. Our members belong to the MMA on a voluntary basis, and we're proud to say that 487 of Maine's 492 municipalities currently belong. The MMA board and all of our municipal members know firsthand the importance of cooperation between municipal and state government. That's why every 4 years we reach out to the candidates for governor with this opportunity to engage in discussion about the nature of the state-local relationship and matters of public policy that are important to Maine's municipal leaders. I'd like to now begin the interview with this opening question. Why are you running for governor? Please tell us what motivates you to run for governor and identify the major goals you would like to achieve over the next 4 years if elected in November.
It's a very good question, and the reason why I'm running for governor is I love the state of Maine. I get asked that question quite often. Why would you give up a safe seat in Congress to come back and run for governor? I do love the state of Maine, and what I've seen over the last 3.5 years with the current administration, it just tears me apart. His divisiveness, the partisanship, and the failed policy that this administration has brought forward over the last 3.5 years. When you look at what I bring to the table, I had the vision to move Maine forward in a very positive direction. I have the experience serving in the legislature on the appropriation committee, knowing the state budget, serving when we had an evenly divided Senate, 17-17-1 split, being able to work across the aisle, and my experience at the federal level. That unique experience will actually help me to be a good governor to move Maine forward in that positive direction. What this governor has done, he brags about balancing the budget. Well, every governor has to balance the budget. The Constitution requires you to balance the budget. But what he did was he did huge tax cuts outside the budget cycle for the wealthy individuals in the state of Maine because he didn't have to pay for them until that budget cycle came due. And what he did, I don't have to tell anyone here in this room, to pay for that budget cycle when he submitted that biennial budget, he eliminated municipal revenue sharing, shifted the cost and unfunded liability on the retirement system back onto municipalities. He changed the BETA program. He brought a lot of instability to not only the state budget, but also to municipal budget, and for businesses who are looking to expand or grow here, and for the businesses that actually invested in the state of Maine under the BETA program. By the governor changing that program caused a lot of instability to the budgetary process. And as governor, I'm going to be focused on stability, because that is the key foundation on how we're going to grow the economy and provide the services we need here in the state of Maine. And I'll be focusing on the structural gap, because that's where they play a lot of games. If there's a tax cut or a spending program that any administration wants to put forward, fine, pay for, either by eliminating programs or doing tax increases. So I'm going to focus on making the next any future governor or legislature deal with the structural gap issue, on the volatility in the budget process. One of the things that I've said over and over again when I was in the Maine legislature is the focus has always been on the appropriation committee. And the reason why the focus has always been on the appropriation committee is because during good times, there's money to spend. Everyone wants that money to spend in budgets, whether it's municipal, county, or state budgets are built upon what money you have. During the downturn, the focus has always been on appropriation because that's where they cut everything. And when you look at how can we have some stability there is actually to help smooth out the budgetary process. So when you look at the ups and downs in the economy, that budgets are built that will be able to absorb that. And one way that you can do that is actually focus state budget is going to be X, but have a small percentage of that revenue go for capital investments, one-time investments. So that way there, it's taken off the state's budget as far as how the state operating budget's going, And then what will happen during the downturn in the economy, what you can do is just fold that money back into the budget. But in the interim, that money is used to be invested in one-time infrastructure. I don't have to tell anyone here the needs that are out there for infrastructure needs, whether it's highway, bridges, ports, schools. There are a lot of one-time infrastructure needs to go out there, and that does not supplant the bonding. We do have, like I said, a lot of repairs that has to be done here in Maine and nationally as well. And that's why I think I'm the best candidate, to be the chief executive of the state of Maine, is because of my experience. And I've also had to commit to look at my record over the years, working with Maine Municipal Association. I've had a pretty good record, solid record of working with MMA on policies at the state level.
Thank you, Representative Michaud. The next question on the state-local relationship will be put from Abe Addington, selectman from Leeds.
Actions taken and attitudes expressed in the State House in recent years have generated a basic question municipal officers want to ask all candidates for governor, state senator, and state representative. Please describe your vision of the appropriate relationship between state government and municipal government under your administration, and what concrete steps will you take to make that vision a reality?
Is making sure that the state government and municipalities that there is that partnership. That's going to be crucial. We are in very difficult times, and one of the reasons we are is because it's been self-induced by budget instability by the current governor. So as governor, I will be meeting with MMA and other interest groups as partners at the table. The other advantage I have as governor would be the fact that where I have a good working relationship with the teachers and state employees. One of the first things I will do is actually reach out to them to find out how we can make state government more efficient, more effective, and find ways of doing things that will move the state forward for the next 10, 15, 20 years, which will be crucial. And if you look at my experience not only at the federal level but also in the state level in building coalitions. For instance, back when I was in the Maine legislature, one bill that kept coming up year after year after year was the Forest Practices Act. And when I became chair of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, coming from the industry, the paper industry, Forest Products Council wanted me to sponsor their forest practice legislation. I told them I would. The Maine Audubon Society wanted me to sponsor their legislation. I told them I would. Here you had these two competing measures. I was the sponsor of both of them. And what I did was actually I brought both sides in. So we're going to pass a forest practices bill because I'm tired of year in and year out have to fight this issue all the time. And it took us a lot of work. It took us 2 days just to define what a clear cut was. But the bottom line was the fact that I was able to bring both sides to the table to really focus on what's the problem and how do you solve that problem. And over the last 3 decades since that bill has been passed into law, there's been very little changes in the Forest Practices Act. And that's what has to be done at the state level, is to bring people together. Under the Affordable Care Act, what this governor has vetoed not once but 5 times, the legislation to expand access under the Affordable Care Act for the 70,000 Mainers. I'll be submitting legislation on day 1 to cover those 70,000 Mainers. And the reason being is not only is it the morally right thing to do, but Maine will actually save over $600 million over a 10-year time frame by covering those 70,000 people. Hospitals will receive additional $348 million over that same time frame. And the fact that you're covering 70,000 Mainers who are not covered now, that actually will help hold down the cost of health care, because there is a lot of cost shifting that's occurring because of Medicare, Medicaid reimbursement rates. It's a win-win all the way around, and the reason why you're able to save that much money and hospitals get more money is because of the enhanced reimbursement rate that we actually built into the Affordable Care Act. And that's the other thing I'll be looking at. Are there other federal funds out there that we haven't tapped into, which are plenty in the education area and other areas, to really bring in as much resources at the federal level to help the state out with our problems that we're currently having.
Follow-up, Abe? This next question is related, and it's submitted by Skip Day, who is a veteran municipal manager, a range rider, and currently the interim manager for Stockton Springs. And he wants to ask you to please describe the type of relationship you would like to establish between the governor's office and the legislature.
It'll be a great relationship. One of the problems I've seen, particularly under the current administration, and for folks that come in from outside that might have that business experience, they're used to saying, well, this is the way we do it in business, that's how we're going to do it, it's my way or the highway type of attitude, which is wrong. Government is not a business. Government should be run efficiently and effectively, and as governor, I'll move forward to make sure that that happens. What I'll be doing is I'll be reaching out to Republicans and Democrats and having them meet with them quite frequently to first of all find out what their concerns and needs are, and really to be able to help them move forward. One of the biggest concerns that I've had is a relationship with the governor and the legislature, and it's not only Democrats, he's had problems with the Republican legislators as well, is to respect. I've served a number of years in the House of Representatives. I served as a state Senate senator, and I've been there. I know the problems that legislators have to face. They're there representing their constituency, and they need that partnership with the executive branch. And I will not, I will encourage the commissioners, the department heads to meet with the legislature as well. When you look at particularly the Appropriation Committee, what had happened with this governor refusing to submit a budget to the legislature and refusing to allow legislators to have access to the commissioners is just unbelievable. And it's not that partnership that I want to create. It's a partnership I want to create where we actually bring people in and really focus on those issues. And I've done the same thing at the federal level. One of the things that surprised, I know some folks, and I don't know if when MMA was down there whether you had a chance to meet Jane Calderwood. When we had opening a position where he was coming back to Maine to run for governor, my legislative director decided to stay in D.C. so she had an opportunity to work with Sherrod Brown, Senator Sherrod Brown. I told her, if she wants to stay in D.C., she should take the job. So when I looked for a replacement to replace my legislative director, actually, I hired, Olympia Snow's former chief of staff, Jane Calderwood. She's from Maine. She knows Maine. She worked with the senator for a number of years as her legislative director and her chief of staff. And for me, I wanted to bring someone in that knew Maine and actually had the ability to really get up and running immediately. And that looks at building the relationships. And with legislators, I do have that experience, and will continue to work that experience to get things done.
Thank you. And as another follow-up, some people believe that the leadership style and tone that a governor sets are important to our communities and the entire state in establishing a positive environment for economic development and enhancing the perception of Maine in the United States and abroad. Do you think that style of leadership plays an important factor in the ability of the governor to achieve established goals? Please describe your style of leadership and describe how your particular approach to leadership would come to be recognized by the citizens of Maine and elsewhere.
Style is a big part of the problem we're facing today, and I know that for a fact. Because I've had businesses in Maine, businesses outside the state of Maine, that are not happy with the attitude that this current administration has portrayed. When you look at economic development and economic opportunities, the fact that this governor drove away a 500 of Fortune 500 company, Statoil, out of the state of Maine is just unbelievable and unconscionable. I know he's against wind power, but the fact of the matter is that there is a company that's willing to spend over $120 million here in the state of Maine that he drove away. I also know for a fact that this governor met with the CEO of a company that actually focuses on managing the Medicaid population. The governor invited the CEO and their top management team into the office, and I was told by the CEO the governor did nothing but berate them during that time frame, and he will never come back to Maine again to meet with the governor. Stability is a key as well. If you look at it in Bucksport, the Verso paper mill actually invested millions of dollars in that mill because of the better program, and this governor changed the better program. Style in how you portray the state of Maine is important. One of the things I hear from businesses outside the state is, why would they want to invest in Maine when our governor doesn't even believe in Maine? When individuals and CEOs look at what this governor is saying about the state of Maine as far as our students not being educated, individuals are lazy in the welfare, that they just want to collect welfare checks, talk about how poor Maine is to do business, that constantly berating Maine and its people is a negativity that actually isn't conducive to bringing folks into the state of Maine. And the last thing I'll mention on that, to actually hammer home as far as how style has a big impact on how we're going to be able to grow the economy here in the state of Maine, is 3 weeks ago when I was coming back from D.C., a gentleman introduced himself to me at the airport, and what he told me was that he's actually from Maine, and what he told me was that there are a lot of businesses in India that want to invest in the United States. And he wants them to invest in the state of Maine because he's from Maine. And I asked him, so what area are they interested in investing in Maine? Paper industry, they're interested in shipbuilding, they're interested in clean, renewable energy. And he said, however, he says, I am not going to bring any of them here as long as this governor is in office. I'm embarrassed by this governor, and we need a difference. And he actually he and his wife took out his check and wrote me a check. And he says, you got to win this. And he said, I am a moderate Republican. We need a change. And so that style of governing that this governor has done over the last 3.5 years is not conducive to a good business climate here in the state of Maine. It has hurt us, and if you look at the statistics with Forbes, we're at the bottom of the list when you look at economic growth here in the state of Maine.
Thanks again. Portland City Councilor Nick Navadonis has our next question.
Congressman, thanks for being here. An example of state-municipal partnership is the General Assistance Program. Many proposals recently advanced in Augusta would significantly change the nature of that relationship. The most recent General Assistance controversy involves new directives regarding the eligibility of certain categories of immigrants. Should Maine's General Assistance Program be restructured? Should the General Assistance eligibility standards be clarified by the legislature? And what changes, if any, to the General Assistance system would you recommend?
As far as whether it should be restructured or clarified, I mean, that's something I would actually, I talked about the partnership early on, is I would sit down with MMA to find out whether or not it actually should be clarified or restructured. I'm not an expert in that. However, having said that, 'cause I've been asked by what's been happening here in Maine with the governor threatening to take funding away from municipalities when you look at the issue with illegal, undocumented immigrants. I think that's wrong for the governor to actually to do that. You can have some folks over here that are undocumented, but they're just waiting for the paperwork to come forward. And for the governor to actually put municipalities in that position is unconscionable, number one. But as far as clarification or restructuring of the GA program, that's something I would have to sit down with MMA to find out whether or not it should or shouldn't be, because I'm not the expert in that particular area.
John Bouvier, the city manager in Biddeford, has our next question.
Good morning, Congressman. Many years ago, the municipalities, in a cooperative effort, agreed to swap out an old tax for revenue share. The The last 6 years, as you probably know, has been incredibly difficult in terms of the relationship with state government over revenue sharing. The administration and the legislature have taken large sums of money out of the municipal revenue sharing distribution, more than half of what would be required by the statute in order to pay for state spending requirements. As governor, it would be important to know, would you intend to support continued raids on revenue sharing in order to balance the state budget? Would you recommend repealing or significantly altering the program? Or would you honor the municipal revenue sharing statute as it exists?
I would not be continuing to raid municipal revenue sharing, number one. As far as changing the program, here again, one would want to, if MMA thinks that the program should be readjusted, I definitely would be willing to sit down and work out what can be done. But I definitely would not be raiding municipal revenue sharing. And having served on the appropriation committee, knowing the state budget, you have a pretty good idea on some of the things that we can do to move Maine forward and tap into some of the federal dollars as well. But you definitely will be a partner at the table, and I would encourage you to continue to reach out, because I know that hasn't been that successful over the last 3.5 years. So,
Thank you.